There's something wholesome about a charity shop. It's not like a big box retailer or a chain store where everything is about numbers, quotas, and corporate policy. Here, the shelves are filled with donations from the community, the prices are a fraction of what you'd pay anywhere else, and every dollar goes right back into helping local causes, whether that's funding the food pantry, supporting the shelter, or sponsoring community projects. Most people who came in understood that. They weren't just hunting for bargains, they liked the idea that their money was doing good. You'd see college students picking up cheap furniture for their apartments, families grabbing winter coats, and collectors digging through books and vinyl records like treasure hunters. It was usually calm, light-hearted, and friendly. The volunteers were retirees who loved chatting with customers, and the atmosphere was more like a neighborhood gathering spot than a store. But of course, every now and then, someone would come in who just didn't get it. Someone who treated the charity shop like it was a high-end boutique and the staff like underpaid servants. Someone who thought that because they were handing over a few crumpled bills, they deserved the world. That someone, on this particular day, was Karen. You could spot her the second she walked in. Mid-50s, oversized sunglasses, hair cut into the unmistakable short, stiff bob that practically screamed, "Let me speak to your manager." She had a designer purse slung over her arm, clearly not a woman in financial distress, but she strutted through the aisles like she was on a mission to uncover fraud. Karen's shopping style was unique, to say the least. She'd pick up a sweater and turn it inside out, holding it up like she was searching for hidden gold. She sniffed at a stack of books, muttering about dust. She huffed at the prices on dishware, scoffing, $3 for this? At Walmart, it's cheaper. The irony of comparing a charity shop to Walmart didn't seem to register with her. Other customers noticed. A young couple browsing vinyl exchanged amused glances every time Karen let out one of her exaggerated sighs. One of the volunteers, a sweet older lady named June, tried to be welcoming, but every time she asked if Karen needed help, she got a sharp, "I'm just looking." And then, inevitably, Karen found her item, a ceramic mug with a floral pattern and a small price sticker, $2. She clutched it like she'd just won a prize, marched up to the register, and slapped it down with a smug smile. At that point, no one had any idea that this tiny purchase was about to spark one of the most absurd scenes the shop had ever witnessed. At first, everything seemed normal. Karen paid for the mug, 2 crisp dollar bills, and left with the same smug expression she'd worn since stepping inside. June, the volunteer at the register, even said cheerfully, "Thank you so much, every little bit helps," as she handed over the receipt. But barely 5 minutes later, the peace of the shop shattered. The door slammed open, and Karen stormed back in like a hurricane. Clutching the same floral mug, she stomped up to the counter where June was now helping another customer. "Excuse me," Karen barked, cutting off the poor college student who was just trying to buy a stack of used cookbooks. "I need to return this. Right now." June, always patient, looked a little startled but nodded politely. "Oh, I'm sorry, was there something wrong with it?" Karen held the mug up like it was evidence in a crime scene. "Yes, there's something wrong. You charged me $2 for this when I saw an identical one at Goodwill for 50 cents. That's a markup of 400%. That's illegal." The entire shop went quiet. The college student blinked in disbelief. I was sorting donated books at the side counter and had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Illegal? Over a $2 mug in a charity shop. June, bless her, kept her composure. "I'm sorry you're unhappy, but our prices are set by donation and volunteer guidelines. They help us fund local projects." Karen wasn't having it. "Don't give me that. You can't just take people's money and refuse refunds. It's against consumer protection laws. I know my rights." She jabbed a manicured finger at the counter. "I want my $2 back. Now." June explained, gently, that charity shops had a no-refund policy. It was printed on a sign at the register, and besides, $2 wasn't exactly a fortune. That's when Karen's voice shot up a full octave. "No refunds? That's a scam. You're stealing money from people under the guise of charity. I could report this entire shop for fraud. Do you understand the legal trouble you're in? By now, other customers were openly staring. A mom with her kids whispered, "Is she serious?" The young couple in vinyl shook their heads, clearly entertained. Karen, mistaking the silence for support, puffed up even more. "I want to speak to your manager. Don't act like you can just shrug this off. This is illegal, and I won't leave until I get justice for being ripped off." The mug was still clutched in her hand, and I swear the way she was waving it around, it looked like she might throw it just to prove her point. What she didn't realize was that her crusade for justice over $2 was about to backfire spectacularly. Just when it seemed like Karen's meltdown might reach critical mass, Margaret, the shop's coordinator, emerged from the back office. Margaret was in her late 60s, a retired teacher with the kind of calm, no-nonsense authority that made even rowdy kids straighten up instantly. If anyone could handle a full-blown Karen incident, it was her. She walked over slowly, not flustered in the slightest, and gave Karen a polite but firm smile. "I understand there's a problem." Karen pounced. "Yes, there's a problem. I was ripped off. This shop overcharged me for this cheap mug. $2. At Goodwill, it's 50 cents. And then your employee refused to refund me. That's illegal." Margaret glanced at the mug, then at Karen, then at the growing crowd of onlookers. "Ma'am, all of our sales are final, as clearly stated on the sign at the register. The money goes directly to charity, supporting the food pantry, school programs, and shelters. It's not about profit." But Karen wasn't backing down. She slammed the mug on the counter with a dramatic clunk. "That's not the point. You can't just keep people's money and hide behind charity. The law says I'm entitled to a refund if I'm not satisfied. I could call the police right now. Or the Better Business Bureau. Do you want that?" At this, a few customers actually snickered. One whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Imagine calling 911 over $2." The mom with kids shook her head and muttered, "Unbelievable." Margaret didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly, her voice calm but edged with finality. "You're welcome to file a complaint if you feel strongly, but legally, we're not obligated to refund a $2 donation item. You made a purchase knowing it was for charity. You got exactly what you paid for." Karen's face turned crimson. She opened her mouth to retort, but Margaret didn't give her the chance. "If you'd like, I can give you store credit for the exact amount. Otherwise, you'll need to leave." That was the breaking point. Karen threw her hands up in disgust. "Store credit? For this dump? Absolutely not. I'm being scammed, and you'll regret this when I bring the authorities into it." The absurdity of it all had tipped the crowd fully against her. The young couple by the vinyl actually started laughing out loud. Someone at the book table clapped sarcastically. Even June, still at the register, couldn't hide the tiniest smirk. Karen's eyes darted around as she realized no one was on her side. Her big moment of justice had collapsed into public humiliation. And then came the finale. Karen snatched up the mug, shoved it back into her bag with a huff, and declared, "You'll all be hearing from my lawyer," before storming toward the door. The bell above it jingled cheerfully as it closed behind her, as if mocking her dramatic exit. Backhand index pointing right. The shop fell into silence for a beat after Karen's grand exit, then erupted into laughter. It wasn't mean-spirited, but the sheer ridiculousness of the scene was too much for anyone to keep bottled up. The young couple by the vinyl joked, "Man, I hope her lawyer bills are worth more than that mug." The college student muttered, "Imagine going to war over $2. Peak Karen energy. Even the mom with kids chuckled as she left, shaking her head and saying, "I'm telling everyone at dinner about this." Margaret sighed, rubbing her temples, but she was smiling. "Well, that's a first," she said, looking at June. $2 nearly sparked World War III. June giggled nervously. "Do you think she'll actually file a complaint?" Margaret shrugged. "If she does, I'd love to see her explain to the authorities how a charity shop scammed her out of $2. They'd laugh her out of the building. Everyone went back to shopping, the tension gone, replaced with a strange sense of camaraderie. People even seemed to be buying more than before, as if they wanted to make up for the negativity Karen brought in. One man came up and said, "I don't even need this toaster, but here's $5. Better in your hands than hers." By the end of the day, the register was fuller than usual. Karen's tantrum, instead of draining the shop, had somehow inspired more kindness and donations. As for Karen, she never came back. Maybe she realized how foolish she looked, or maybe she found another store to target with her legal expertise. Either way, the shop volunteers would forever remember her as $2 Karen. The incident even became a bit of local legend. A few days later, one of the regulars brought in a novelty mug they'd found at another thrift shop. It had big, bold letters across the front, "Worth every penny." They donated it to the store, and Margaret placed it proudly on the display shelf, marked at, you guessed it, $2. It sold almost immediately, with the buyer winking at June and saying, "Don't worry, I won't call the cops." In the end, Karen's attempt to guilt a charity shop over pocket change only humiliated her and strengthened everyone else's sense of community. Her $2 meltdown turned into a running joke that outlived her visit by months. All because one woman couldn't let go of a mug and $2.